our number, 845-429-1700. But that's if you have a question for our next guest, and that is Tina Traster of RCBizJournal.com, the commercial you just heard a spot for. Good morning, Tina. How are you?
Good morning. How is it? Has everybody gotten to work by canoe today?
Well, if you're in the North Rockland area, that's and Orange County, I would recommend that. But elsewhere, everything seems to be, in the Rockland anyway, everything seems to be pretty good.
All right. That was really something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, reminder that on Wednesday morning, another Meet with the Editor breakfast, 8:30, roasted, ROAST''D in Nanuet. Hope to see some of you guys there. In other news, so a lot of opposition around the county to basically development. Starting with the story that we just posted last night. This is about Stony Pointers protesting a plan for 86 apartments and office development on Route 9W.
And if you look at the flooding that's going on over there, they may have a point. You know, that's what they're concerned about is flooding issues down there is one of those things.
So picture, you know those black and white movies, courtroom scenes, 1940s, absolutely boiling. People are fanning themselves, kind of the heat just rising.
Ceiling fans rotating slowly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that was Stony Point last week in the community room in the decrepit Row building of Letchworth. And that is where they held this meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, where about 150 people piled in. The room was scalding. I mean, I'm surprised that EMTs weren't on hand to catch fainting people. It really was a scalding room. There was a fan that was absolutely useless. And the Zoning Board of Appeals that you could not hear over the whir, and he was having to try to shout. Anyway, it was a hot mess. It was literally a hot mess. But that said, this is a project that has been on the table for more than 4 years, since 2019, gone through several iterations, is at both the planning and zoning simultaneously, and last week it was before the zoning board. The Zoning Board of Appeals has to consider 3 rather minor requests for variances. However, the anger and the heat in the room is just pushing back against the project at large. They don't want the scale. They say it will ruin character. Public officials around this county, Ed Day, Jim Monahan, and others, are constantly talking about the need for millennial and empty nester apartments, something other than single-family homes. I think there's no community that's more exemplary of just simply single-family homes than Stony Point. And this is just a well-worn playbook where every single development is opposed. Now, in this particular case, it is a 4-acre parcel at 111 South Liberty Drive. It's on, as I said, Route 9W. I don't know if it's a flood zone or not. That didn't come up actually at the meeting. It seems to be more about this objection to this kind of housing in that town. Denser housing, a larger structure. But what the zoning board has before it are, as I said, just 3 very minor variances. They're asking for basically a variance on the northern side yard for parking, a variance on the western side driveway, and literally a 2.4 variance on a setback for a retaining wall. Now, this project will toggle between, back and forth between zoning and planning, and the applicant, who was represented by Brooker that night, was asked several times, why they can't fit this project onto the site in a way that wouldn't require variances, because that would at least alleviate the Zoning Board of Appeals from having to deal with these minor asks, and also, and balance that against the opposition, even if the opposition isn't specific to these variances. This project, for example, is it does not need a use variance. It's in an as of right. The developer is allowed to build this project, and but for these variances, they would only have to go before the planning board. So this will continue. I mean, this has been going on for 4 years, this project. We know that this at Stony Point just continuously seems to object to, they objected to 2 rounds of development on the Letchworth property. We've talked about that. They certainly came out against Eagle Bay. There's a consistency where it seems that, and again, are these, I don't know where the balance is exactly. I mean, yes, there's one thing to preserve the character. On the other hand, I suppose if you're a millennial, you're not able to find or an empty nester, you're just not able to find a place to live in Stony Point. So it's a difficult battle that sort of has a micro and macro element to it, and these meetings are very heated. They're really, the temperature is high, not just physically, but emotionally the temperature is really high, and we'll just have to keep this. There are 2 more meetings on this project. One is I think on the planning board and the zoning board, both within the month of July. So we shall see how this project progresses or stalls, depending on where it goes. So we'll keep an eye on that. In speaking of stalls, moving to Clarkstown now, the restaurateur in Congress on Route 303, Bella Gianna, who's been wanting to get a restricted covenant lifted off of that site so that it could sell the restaurant to a church, that got quashed also very recently when the Clarkstown Town Planning Board was unmoved and did not, in fact, lift this restrictive covenant that only allows this property to be a restaurant because it was a special accommodation many years ago. Bella Gianna, the folks there, had a pending contract with the Rehoboth Church of God. These folks filled the planning board room for a couple of meetings, hoping that the planning board would see that this was a group of people that simply wanted to site a church. Ironically, there was a Korean church just a couple of doors down in what is now a steakhouse. So there's a little twist of irony there. But nevertheless, the planning board held fast to the idea that they didn't want to set the precedent for removing this restrictive covenant. However, the last word will belong to the town council. And so we are waiting to see if the town council defies the planning board's decision. So that is an ongoing story as well.
Hey, Tina, we do have a caller with a question for you, if you don't mind.
I'll do my best to try to answer.
Indeed, as we always try to do. Hi, you're on with Tina Traster. Who's this?
This is Jim. Tina, good morning. First thing is you're talking about the Bella Giannas on Route 303. So what I find funny is you said that the town board denied that the opportunity to be bought from a church. They wouldn't allow the planning board.
Wait, Jim, it's the so far it's the planning board that made a recommendation to the town board to deny the lifting of the covenant. Okay, carry on.
That's funny because I will. There's a restaurant, obviously Sangria's, and the owner Caesar opened up the steakhouse over there, which used to be a restaurant, but then was sold to and used as a Korean church, and then all of a sudden it's back to a restaurant.
I know.
I find that so strange, but that's the political world we live in. I mean, it's who you know, what you know, and what you might slide under the table. It's just all BS. So I feel bad for the owner of Bella Gianna's that they're just, not making it possible, but they did in the past, So, and I've been part of that town and gone through the boards and all that nonsense. But another thing I have a question about is in West Nyack, the board or just the whole political scene over there with Van Houten Farms. The success of
Yeah, I was just
Red
gonna,
Barn.
that's so funny. I was just going to move on to that story
Well,
now.
I have my crystal ball out, Tina. I knew that. That's why I called the book and stuff, so.
Or you're reading Rockland County Business Journal, hopefully.
I do. That's why. Listen, you're very in tune with what's going on in the county. So I'm on an 8-year plan. I'm out of here in 8 years, but I'll be listening to you till then to find out what's going on. But that being said, the success of the Red Barn Cidery over with the Davies Farm, I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
I live over there, and it's just huge. And I hear people talking. I'm just wandering around drinking, getting drunk on the cider, and everybody's just enamored by it. And I give the Davies family huge credit for doing that. They could have easily sold that property. Well, this is my dog bark. Anyway, they could have sold that property for millions and millions and millions and retired generational wealth, but they chose to really, I mean, it's a tough business, liquor business, the state taxes, all that stuff. Is any prospects of Orangetown, resolving what's going on?
Well, if you saw the piece that we just posted last week, where that stands is there's also a lot of tension, another heated room, because
they are also two very different locations, comparatively speaking.
I'm not saying, but there are two different locations, but I mean, you can still make it work at a small location on a smaller scale, opposed to saying, hey, no, not at all.
And I think that's the sentiment of the overwhelming majority of the Orangetown board. It's not Teresa Kenny's sentiment, clearly, from the comments that she had that night at the town board meeting, but it seems that at least 3 other council members want to move in some direction of compromise. And here again, we have an applicant coming to the town looking for a special permit, a special use permit, and they're going to duke it out. But the sentiment, despite, again, a lot of opposition, and in this case, all these lawsuits that have been carrying on for 2 to 3 years, it seems that the majority of the board in Orangetown seems to recognize that there's some good reason to try to figure out how to compromise to make something work. So we'll, again, not the end of the story yet, but keep following it.
Thank you, caller. Much appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
And have a good day. So what else is going on in the world of RC Biz Journal?
Well, I think the cidery, and we've covered Bellagiana's and Stony Point, and I guess what all of these stories point to is development is a very sensitive issue, and yet there are massive warehouses that are being built all over the county. And I guess because if they're not necessarily in the backyards of people, residential areas, you don't see the same crowds, you don't see the same emotion, and yet we continue to break ground and get rid of trees and things that absorb. Look at these rains. I mean, 4 inches we had. So I think it's very difficult to balance development and progress on the whole, and it's always been a hard thing to do. It needs to be. I think development needs to be coordinated. It needs to have a county needs to have a vision about where it's going and how to deal with its needs, housing, affordability, its workforce. I mean, they're all integrated concepts. Nothing is in a vacuum. If you don't have millennial housing, you don't have a workforce for your service and retail and restaurant industry. So it's complicated. It requires good planning skills. It requires more kind of global thinking about how a county should be developed, even though these issues and decisions are obviously left to local municipal boards, villages and towns, what have you. But they all impact one another. And even what Jim was saying is there's I guess he's enamored, as he said, to have a good cidery in the county, and a good cidery in the county means a lot of different things. It means tourism. It means visibility. It's a lot of different things. So. These are difficult things that we're talking about. When you look at it just one issue at a time, I always think about just the larger matrix of where it all fits in. So complicated.
Nothing good ever comes easy, does it?
No, it does not.
But what does come easy is news of a business perspective. If you go to RCBizJournal.com, you can sign up for email newsletters. You can get all your reports right there on your phone as well, on your computer. And you even have, like you said, you've got meetings with the reporters and the folks behind the scenes at the show at the website at Roasted and Nanuet. And when's the next one coming up?
That is Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning. Hope to see you guys there.
All right. Well, you might see some of our listeners. You won't see me because I'll be here, but we'll work on that, and we'll put our heads together and wrap our heads around something that that we could possibly do together at some point.
That sounds wonderful. Have a great week.
Thank you, Tina.